Welcome to 3 Points. I'm your host, Tony McGarren. Leadership is often shaped in moments we don't talk about. The decisions that stay with you and the lessons that you only learn by doing the work. In this podcast, I speak with leaders from the worlds of sport, business, and beyond to explore 3 defining points that have shaped their approach to thinking, decision-making, and leadership. It's not about having all the answers. It's about learning from experience. If you're passionate about great leadership, then you're in the right place. In today's conversation, I'm joined by Kathryn. Kathryn is a Northern Irish broadcaster, host, and storyteller, and she really knows how to hold a room. With over a decade of experience presenting and hosting across BBC Radio 1, CBBC, and Children in Need, Kathryn brings warmth, clarity, and confidence to every stage she steps onto. And today, Kathryn shares her 3 points on freelancing. Let's go ahead and get stuck into the conversation.
The real wealth I have in my life is my freedom. That flexibility in life that I can say yes to an opportunity that's 2 weeks from now. And as much as that can be seen as a negative, it's a real positive in my life. I have a luxury life filled with only the things that I really align with, things I'm passionate about, things that just make me come alive. And that's my annual leave. That's my luxury. That's my private healthcare.
Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us on the 3 Points podcast.
Delighted to be here. Thanks.
You flew in this morning.
Yes.
How's the energy?
Energy's very good, actually. It was a bit of a windy intro to Belfast City, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. Energy's a funny one because it's something that I know following your career over many years. It's not something that I should really need to check in with you about. Is that fair to say?
Do you know what? Energy is my thing. Without doubt, I'm always high energy. So I'm going to have to calm myself down a little bit.
No, don't do that. But what we will do is we'll introduce what we're talking about today and we'll get to know you a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a pleasure to have you on 3 Points. I've wanted you to be here for a while. And when I asked you what you wanted to talk about, you had lots of different ideas. And the one that we both agreed on that might be the most value to different people listening, especially in the current economic climate, the way people are working, was freelancing. So today we're talking about 3 points on freelancing.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to know you a little bit more, tell us a little bit about why that's important to you.
Well, I think it's one of those things that doesn't really get talked about that often, the trial and error of being freelancer, because I think actually being a freelancer means you're unemployed, really. You're waiting for that next gig. You're waiting for that next pay packet when that's going to come in. You're looking for your next opportunity. And I think for a lot of people, they're kind of forced into being a freelancer in different industries and things like that. So it's not talked about enough. It's like a taboo subject because it's like, well, I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm a freelancer. So freelancing is figuring it all out.
I like that. Freelancing is figuring it all out. And folks that don't know you right now are going, what does she do? Because freelancing can mean anything. You could be a freelance plumber. You could be a freelance facilitator. That is stuff that I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
But let's tell us a little bit more about kind of what you do and where you freelance.
So I'm a TV presenter. I started in radio 14 years ago now here in Northern Ireland. And I kind of got into that because I had this big personality and I kind of didn't really know what to do with it. And I was like, I really like talking. I wonder if there's a job where I could just get away with talking for hours and hours and hours. And managed to get into one of the biggest radio stations in Northern Ireland and worked there for 4 years and then moved on to another radio station. And then when I moved to England 9 years ago now, I kind of moved more into multimedia presenting, and I also present on stage as well.
So I'm really excited, Kathryn, because what we're going to do is we're going to sort of unlock some of your insights around freelancing. And I think whether or not someone's deciding to do this might help encourage them one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's launch in. So your first point, Kathryn, is around finding your value.
Now, finding my value was really difficult for me because I think when I made the transition from being a radio presenter into more multimedia, on-screen, presenting to camera, that sort of thing, a lot of people, many agents I went to meet, management, all those types of things, they were like, Kathryn, you need to get in your lane. And I remember thinking, what? Well, why? You know, I grew up watching TV presenters, you know, the likes of Ant and Dec, all those presenters that I was like, how come they get to have loads of fun on the TV and get paid to do it? That sounds like an amazing job. But they never once had to find their niche. They never had to stay in their lane. They were doing multiple different, programs, all that types of thing. So it really actually started to frustrate me that everybody kept saying this, because they wanted to put me on a path that was like, well, that's where you're heading to. You're going to become an expert in money, for example. The likes of Martin Lewis. We're seeing the rise of experts in the presenting world. So I was kind of like hit back on that a few times to be like, that's just not where I want to be. But in finding and pushing that away and keeping my arms open and saying, do you know what, I want to play around a little bit, like maybe like dating, and almost to be like, I'm going to try a little bit of that, see what works for me. And just saying yes to a lot of things helped me find what made me feel passionate and energized and excited. And I think in order, when I started doing that, it was because I was so open-armed and thinking, let's see what these opportunities bring me, and not staying in my lane. So actually, I'm a bit against telling anybody to, find your lane and stick to it. Yes, it's good for focus, but actually it hasn't been great for my career.
I love that. We're going to come back to that, because I subscribe to that way of thinking, in that I also was encouraged and mentored, and folks said, before you start your own business and freelance, essentially, which is how I started People Playbook, they were like, you need to find a specific problem. And I was like, I want to solve lots of problems. Oh, but you need to find a specific industry. I want to work across a lot of industries. So I think kindred spirits in that. We'll come back to maybe your later stage of your career where you started to go different channels, right, between the radio and the TV. But I want to go back further to when, you got started. So you get this opportunity, and they say, look, you're actually self-employed, whether you like it or not, that's the job. And you start off down this path. Like, how are you finding value in the early stages of your career?
It wasn't without its difficulties. I'll be honest. Finding value, it kind of felt like this feels good, so I want to keep doing this. This feels right. But also, when obviously I was volunteering in a community radio station, not being able to make ends meet. So then I got a new skill. I became a DJ. I was probably when you heard me on Blast 106. I was doing a mix show, which I absolutely love. But by people hearing me on the radio, they were like, do you do gigs? And I was like, oh, this could be a way, while I'm not making money doing what I love, a way of making money to keep me sorted. So then I kind of found value in that, and then started working in the nightclubs, and that really helped me, be able to pay my bills.
So not intentionally going out to DJ, more people giving you a call and you saying yes to the opportunity.
Yeah, me saying yes to the opportunity and then figuring it out in time for the gig.
And tell me this, did the DJing also help you hone your craft further?
Absolutely. I think in my head, it planted a seed of thinking, I can do whatever I really want to do. And it took me a while to develop the skill as a DJ, because that takes a lot of focus, a lot of patience, and a lot of being a bit rubbish and actually going, right, what can I improve on here? So there was a lot of work behind the scenes to develop that skill, but I knew I needed to do that in order to be able to pay my bills.
Yeah. It's fun that you can draw a line, right? And when you go back, you go, in hindsight, that made sense. When you're speaking to others who are considering freelancing and finding value, and this happens to me often because, you mentioned drawing a line between having a big personality, wanting to talk a lot, and then, I'll go on radio, right? And that's a big leap. And not always, it's not always true that just because you like doing something means you're good at it, or that there's a quote unquote market for it. How did you know actually you had some talent in this, or how did you develop your talent further? Because, that is the reality for a lot of folks. I think they might lead with, I enjoy this. But of course, there's a difference between that and then having the opportunity.
I think, to be perfectly honest, I think I had a bit of delusion. So I was like, I really enjoy this. So people are kind of going to get it in their face a little bit. They have no real say in the game. And I think I got a lot of rejection. And I think freelancers, when they're starting in this game, they're going to get a whole lot of rejection. You're going to get many, many doors slammed in your face. But I also think that really provoked my work ethic of but why? But why not give me an opportunity? One memory I have is that I always had this vision that I was going to be on Radio 1. And back in 2015, maybe, Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 came to Derry, Londonderry for their big weekend. And I did a search on the head of the Radio 1 programs, and I got a CD made of my radio demo from the community radio station. I don't even think I was on commercial at that stage. And I brought it to this man, and I stalked the life out of him. His name's Ben Cooper. And I went up to him.
Ben's now going to be hounded again if he's still got that job.
He's not. He's now somewhere else now. But I ran up to him after this seminar that he'd been running, forced my poor daddy to drive me up 3 days in a row up to Derry, Londonderry. And I placed that in his hand, and I was like, I'm going to be on Radio 1 one day. I really want you to listen to this and give me some feedback. My email's in there. And he went, brilliant. Absolutely, I will email you. Then maybe 3 or 4 days later, he emailed me and he said, Kathryn, I thought you were a singer. Because I did a full photo shoot on the front of this CD. He was like, I could have sworn you were a singer and you looked like it was country and western. And I was thinking, there's no way this is on Radio 1 ever. And he's like, and as soon as I turned it on, he was like, the energy of this girl and the fact that she had the gumption to come up to me and say, I'm going to be on Radio 1, not I want to be on Radio 1, I'm going to be on Radio 1. And he sent me a load of feedback, connected me with a couple of other people. And I won't say that helped me actually get on to Radio 1, but it definitely instills something in my mind to be like, keep going, you can make this happen.
It's such a great story, Kathryn, because it's such a paradox. There's a bit of you saying, look, I'm going to make this happen. And the other side of you is going, geez, I'm going to get a lot of rejection and this is going to suck and I'm not going to be very good for a while, but I'm going to keep at it.
Yeah. And I think, again, it goes back to that delusion because, I came up from humble beginnings. My family, it was just me and my mum and dad. And we didn't really have a lot. But also, I don't think that was really a barrier for me because I did work. And yes, probably it comes from a place of privilege where I could still live with my parents and I could be looked after while I was coming up the ranks. But I definitely think that taking a risk and finding the right people and not staying static for too long, I could still be in community radio. They would have kept me on for many, many years. But it's also knowing your value and knowing your worth when it's time to move on. Am I still getting enough out of this? Is this paving a path for me to get to where I want to be? Well, then it's not paying you in any shape or form. So move on.
Perfect jumping off point. Don't know if you did that on purpose as a professional that you are, because your second point is all around building confidence in business. And I guess what I was curious about hearing more of was how did you find out in those early stages or throughout, how did you feed your delusion, Kathryn, I suppose is the question, because at one point the delusion becomes the reality.
Whenever I was getting this negative feedback and things, and I sent loads of CDs, I sent so many to every single radio station all around the UK, and most of the time didn't even get a reply. But that didn't stop me. I then developed the next demo and sent out more CDs. But I think with all that happening, I was working on the next thing. At that stage, I applied for Blue Peter. Because that was always my dream. Watching Ant and Dec on SMTV, watching Blue Peter growing up, I was like, that looks like a really fun job. You get to go and explore something amazing while educating the next generation. That sounds like real good fun.
And these are, for folks that don't know, like Blue Peter, Radio 1, I mean, they are
big brands.
They're top of their class in the different sort of formats we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So you weren't looking just locally and going, oh, I'll do no offense to Blast 106. You were looking at that going, that's what I love about your career, that you were happy to get started and grateful for opportunities, but yet you had your eyes on something bigger.
I'll never forget the day I got my first ever show on Cool FM. It was on Christmas Day and someone got sick last minute. I went into that radio station and poked in a bin.
And then did the show though?
But yeah. And then played I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas on repeat. But I will never forget that moment because I had worked and grafted to get to that point. I'd been in there for days and hours learning the desk so that if someone fell short, I could be there and I could be, a safe pair of hands to throw on the radio. And, that things like that. They were pivotal moments that made me become more determined for what I could achieve.
Amazing. How have you, or if you have at all, got over any form of imposter syndrome where maybe that's walking into Cool FM throwing up going, oh, am I really supposed to be here? I'm not sure. Or is it just that the moment kind of caught up with you?
Um, I've had it a lot throughout the years. Like I had a moment back in 2024 where I was hosting a live show along with the puppet called Dodge the Dog. And it was a live show to millions of kids live.
Wow.
And I remember just as like they were doing the countdown in my ear, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is it. This is the pinnacle of my life. This is the biggest thing I've ever had the opportunity to do. Enjoy it. I remember thinking, just enjoy it, just be present. And that, is
God,
the
I
real.
thought that story was going another direction, Kathryn. Like I
Did you
thought it
think
was
there was
like
another boat coming?
I thought you were going to freeze on camera,
No,
but
no. The thing is, I had done the air miles. I had,
yes.
done loads of stuff where I'm presenting to camera. I'd done loads of live stuff before, but this was the moment where I was like, this is where I had a vision of where I wanted to get to. And all those years and years and years of no's and, only getting so far and doing things like that brought me to that moment. And I even get goosebumps just thinking about it now because I was like, it can't get better than this.
Mm.
And since I did it in 2024, I was asked then to do it again just in
Wow.
November there.
That's a confidence boost, right?
It really is. And like, I'll be devastated. I'll go into deep depression if I don't get asked to do it next year for BBC Children in Need. But
If you're listening.
if you're listening, hit me up. Please give me loads of time in advance so that I'm not nervous that you're not going to ask me. But I remember thinking, like, I get to fully be the authentic version of myself. It's not an act. It's not a performance. Yes, it's me, but on a really good day.
Mm.
And I remember just thinking, coming off from it, being like, oh, no, I'm going to be a wee bit sad for a wee while. Because, until I get something as good as that again.
It's like the lessons that I'm taking from your journey and your story is it's such a paradox. And I think it's important that if anyone is considering freelancing, they're hearing all the different aspects because it's not just delusion. It's not just sort of this ultimate confidence, like I'm going to try. It's, as you say, it's doing the air miles. It's getting lots of rejections. It's putting the time in. It's being prepared to be rejected. And yet also having that vision and that kind of purpose of like Radio One, that's my goal. We've covered loads, right? We've talked about finding your value. So if folks are listening, they're thinking, okay, how do I get started? They're thinking about, being a bit delusional, following purpose, following joy. Secondly, we've covered sort of this building confidence in business, talked about Ben Cooper, realizing you're not a country and Western singer, and then giving you an opportunity, and then, that feeding the delusion and making it a reality that actually, even though amidst many rejections, you're finding your feet, finding your path and getting to do the stuff that you love to do. And then dealing with imposter syndrome. And I just love that story, by the way, about, sitting there as you're about to go live. Because again, the mindset's critical because on a bad day, for others, we might end up really second guessing ourselves, but instead you realize you were in the moment, you were present. So I love that. Now, we are taking it maybe where you would like to go, the more negative side, but more of the challenges, right? And your third point is around the side of the business nobody wants to talk about.
Being self-employed is really difficult in that you have to be very good at budgeting. You have a lack of control, really. I think that's what it's all centered around, in that you don't know when your next opportunity is going to come up. So it's all about preempting, right? The next one's going to be a little bit dry. So maybe I should get back in contact with people I worked with maybe in the year before or the year before that. And that is really scary because a lot of people would freeze up in that situation to be like, I'm going to be skint next month, so I'll just do nothing. Whereas you have to kind of think, how can I benefit my future self? How am I going to make sure that it is a lucrative month? And I think building relationships and contracts and things like that, sometimes they can decide, Kathryn, we used you as a presenter last year, but actually we're going to take what's it they say? We're going to go in a different direction this time. Sounds like rejection to me. But
It's not you, it's me.
it's us. It's our problem. And that does happen. And that cannot come as like a real big surprise to you. You need to have, a landing mat before that all happens.
And it's probably not personal.
No,
Sometimes it
of course
genuinely
it's
is to
not.
do with
They get budget cuts.
Yes.
It could be a multitude of things.
Completely out of your control.
Yeah. But you have to have a safety net in that. I wouldn't say I'm a particularly good at budgeting type of person, but I do think ahead more than I really realize. So it's subliminal. Like I'm not thinking about, I need to think about March. It's not conscious.
Yes.
I'm just moving forward and always trying to keep on the side with like contacts that could come back up again.
I found it, especially when I started, remember People Playbook was Tony McGarren freelancing. So just to be clear, at the start from his bedroom office at the start of the pandemic. And I find, again, a bit of a paradox and a bit of a tension between you have to be present and you have to be really in the moment in the work that you're doing. But at the same time, like you just described, and this is why it isn't for everyone, you also have to have one eye on the future and going, yeah, this is great today and I'm going to be amazing today at my job. I'm going to give it everything. And I know that I need to be thinking about next month, or I need to be cultivating new relationships, new opportunities. How do you balance that?
I actually don't think I know the answer to that because COVID for me was a big thing in that before COVID, I was a full-time DJ in London.
Oh.
And I did my last gig on St. Patrick's Day 2020. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to diversify here because there's not immediate money coming in here. And obviously we know with grants and things like that, they took a long time to come by. And that's when I realized that social media is my shop window. I need to use social media during this time while I have a bit of free time in my hands to not only diversify, but to open my shop window for potential work in the future. And I think the thing with that, and a lot of people listening today, I would say start building your social media no matter what you do. Doesn't matter if you're a script writer, if you are in copywriting, anything at all like that. Social media is a real tool to get you more work because SEO, all those types of things, people can find you and they look at your shop window and they're like, I actually would love to buy from them. It doesn't mean you are going to be an overnight influencer. You don't have to be an influencer. You just have a good presence on there. And I think that that's really worked for me.
Tell me this, Kathryn. We're talking about your third point, business, the side of the business nobody wants to talk about. The other thing that I find that comes up most frequently with me when I have conversations with people that want to start a business or become self-employed is the finance around it. And it's not the taxes. It's getting paid to do things that you want to do and you love to do. Right. And we've all been on journeys on this. I know when I left and started my own business, I was just grateful to get paid. A bit like you. I was like, oh my God, someone's going to pay me to do what I want to do. And I remember I used to do, sessions for 3 hours, which didn't include prep, for like a couple $100 US. And like, I was delighted. And I don't look back at that with any resentment. I look back and I think, wow, what an important moment for me. 2020, honing my craft, getting a chance to do the work I love. And thankfully, I was in a fortunate enough position where I had savings and I could take those risks, and take those jobs. What do you say to folks who are thinking about, their value and how to get value? Are you on the one side of the camp that's like, oh, know your value, make sure you charge through the roof and demonstrate how expensive and amazing you are by your price? Or are you like, you know what, take a tenner and be grateful and get on with it and just get started?
It's something I still deal with like on a daily, weekly basis in that I know my value. I know my worth, but sometimes you have to look at it like, is this an opportunity where I can build upon my craft or I can build upon my connections or make an opportunity out of this? Which is really difficult to say to someone who's thinking about starting their business or becoming self-employed because we can't live on exposure.
Yeah.
It's
not good just because it's good for your CV, as they used to say.
It's like, when the tax man comes knocking, oh, well, I got paid an exposure. Can you take this as like my tax this year? Like, that's not going to happen. So I think it is it's weighing it up. It's looking at the situation. It's like, so if I do this event for you as a presenter for free of charge, is there any opportunity that could happen in the next 6 months that you could get me involved with, that I could get paid to do? It's weighing it up. It is a really challenging thing, and it's actually really lonely because most of my friends and family, they don't even know what self-employed means. They don't know what freelance means. They're like, but you can take a week off. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't get paid to do that. Yes, I can come home for a couple of weeks and see you and be on my jollies. But, you know, in the next month, I'll feel that as a freelancer. So I think it is weighing it up, because you have to be smart. You do have to be a little bit selfish in that you'd be like, I really want to work with you, but if you've got no budget, I can't afford it. That's what it is. It's not being able to afford it, not being, you know, in a position where I can't afford to work for you for free because I'll be out this money that I could be getting elsewhere.
So when you're trying to figure out also your value, because it's okay to say, oh, I know my value and my worth, but that doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's price intelligence out there. There's price data to know what does Joe, the other presenter down the road in London, get paid, and how do you position yourself in kind of the market, right? I mean, that I find it's sort of connected to loneliness too, Kathryn, because oftentimes when you're solo, you're not one of these big brands, so you don't have 10 quotes, so you don't really know what you're up against. How do you navigate that in your industry?
Do you know what? I've found that difficult because, you know, in the times when I was just starting on radio and things like that, I didn't know what Joe down the road was getting paid.
Yeah.
Now I know it must have been a hell of a lot more than I was ever getting paid. And because I think at that stage, I was just developing my craft, I didn't know my worth. So I did a lot more things for free than I ever should have. And people will take advantage of that. So please do be careful whenever you're first as a freelancer. If you have enough self-esteem and feel that good about yourself that you're able to be a freelancer, you have to have that self-belief. And that is worth a clean fortune. So please keep that. And don't let anybody drag it out of you, because they will try to.
No, absolutely. And that it's the self-belief, but it's not, it's funny, the delusion, back to this delusional.
Yeah.
I've seen other freelancers, and actually a lot of people would say this to me when I got started. Oh, you need to be charging a lot more. I would say, then they're not hiring me.
Yeah, they're taking George down the road.
They're going, for half the price that I've positioned. And again, it's such a difficult thing. Are there any questions that you use? Because for me, when we have these conversations, we will ask straight up, you know, what's your budget? Have you assigned a budget for this particular presenter role? Or do you have for this project is a good one? Sometimes, you know, we'll ask other questions about in the past, you know, who have you worked with in the past? And then I can kind of get an idea of where they're at. You can do your own online research, but what sort of things do you do in order to figure out the finance? Because it is the bit that no one talks about. And it's the bit that's, I think, one of the greatest challenges.
If I'm being fully upfront and honest, I think it depends on my mood. If I'm feeling like, oh, I've got loads of self-belief in myself because I've just done this amazing project, like I know my worth today. Tomorrow it might be slightly different. So I will go in initially. I'll be like, what's your budget for this? What are you working with? What is your client saying? Who's the client? I think it's a very key one. Because a lot of agencies I've worked with they've come back and they've been like, really low budget on this one. And I'm like, well, who's it for? And they're like, Amazon. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's right, but okay.
His wedding looked terrible. It looked like it wasn't, you know, poor Jeff.
It's one of those things. It's like, he's hard up these days, God love him. But it's one of those things. It's like you're negotiating with, you know, hopefully you're negotiating with a middleman. But if it's face value, you're saying, what sort of budget are you working with here? I'm really excited about this opportunity. So I don't want it to go to someone else, but I also know my worth.
Would you do you typically have to anchor in your world? Like, as in, are you going first with a price, or are they going first with a price?
It can be mixed. It can be mixed. Sometimes, like whenever they come back and they're like, absolutely, I'm like, for more. But this is a battle. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. So you have to go in at, this is what I think I deserve for this type of job. And the more experience I get in doing that, the more it works out for me. Sometimes it's been, we're really sorry, but you're just way out of our price range. And I'll then go back and I'll say, well, what is your price range? And then we'll maybe negotiate a bit more. But you have to have the strength to be able to walk away. And I think that's the difference between knowing your worth and not knowing your worth, is being like, this is my price, like it. Sorry, we can't get there. Okay, well, thank you very much, but no thank you.
Because you can't get the same thing for half the price, because that's not the value exchange that is fair and equitable. And I agree with you. And this is probably the jumping off point into loneliness, because you've chatted about how good a mood you're in your pricing. I understand that. That speaks true to me, as my previous experience, until I brought on David in our business, who a little bit more objective, a little bit more rational, a little bit less.
What would you do without him?
Probably we wouldn't be sitting here in a nice studio recording podcasts, because we couldn't afford to, because David came in and, you know, he stressed some of the points you made around, this is the price and this is the value that you're getting. And we know this to be in the market, what's fair and equitable and what we're worth. And also, I think the confidence piece I've outsourced that. And I often tell people, if you're doubting yourself, like, find others, ideally in the industry, who can give you confidence, right? Because it's a lonely world, and you might think you're amazing some days and might not think, oh, didn't do as well the other days. And I think the truth is probably in the middle, and getting that sort of reality check from others is really key. So, like, how do you navigate loneliness in this role as a freelancer?
It's collaboration with like-minded people who are not necessarily in the same arena as me. I do have a couple of friends who are presenters and, you know, doing incredibly well in their career, but the majority of people that I'm around aren't in that space. So I do try and network with self-employed people, freelancers, and be around them in that environment, because they have that same hunger that I do, determination that I do. And even though my closest and bestest friends are in secure jobs, I have a career and there's no stability in the career, whereas they can have a week off and
paid annual leave.
What is that? I would love to hold it in my hand. I can hard not relate to any of that, and they can't relate to mine. They're like, so what are you doing this week? So are you working today? And they're always, they go, is this little squint? What? Okay. But that keeps my life exciting, but I have to stay hungry. The real wealth I have in my life is my freedom. That flexibility in life, that I can say yes to an opportunity that's 2 weeks from now. And as much as that can be seen as a negative, it's a real positive in my life. I have a luxury life filled with only the things that I really align with, things I'm passionate about, things that just make me come alive. And that's my annual leave. That's my luxury. That's my private healthcare.
That's your perk.
Yeah.
What I take from your whole spirit and energy around freelancing, which I share, is that joy of freedom. And I often tell people what I love most about it is I'm the master of my own fate. Win or lose, it's on me. And I really pick that up from you too, Kathryn, that like, win or lose, and you know you're going to win because you're going to work so hard and you're going to be delusional. Look, this has been amazing. I could keep going, but I'm cognizant of the time, and I'm so grateful you've taken the time to chat with us on 3 points. I have one final question that we ask all our guests who share their different leadership lessons, and we've been focusing on freelancing. For those that go into freelancing or decide to take that leap or are in it already, if they're to adopt all of the different things that you've shared and the lessons you've shared today, how might the world change for the better?
I think the world would have a little bit more faith in themselves. And I'm a big believer in, you can't fill from an empty cup. So fill your cup up, and then you can think about other people.
I love that. I just want to say once again, a big thanks for joining us on the 3 Points podcast.
Thanks for having me.